What's up, EJK here, and this video today is going to be between a Flash versus Classic, round of 16, Group C, match number 1 from the Hot 6 Cup tournament. It's going to be, it's game 3 of the best of 3 series, and it's going to be on Cross Positions Deadwing. We all love how Deadwing is a big-ass map, but this is a very cool game because it shows a very complete macro game by Flash. A lot of different, it shows an early game, a mid game, and a late game, and he ends up winning. So I thought it would be a great game to analyze for y'all. Let's hop into the game right here. So we see that even though it is a 4-player map, Flash chooses instead to go for a Reaper expand. There is, in fact, nothing wrong with that. You might think that you're at a slight disadvantage when the opponent goes for a Nexus first and you're going for a Reaper expand on cross positions Deadwing, but you, in fact, are not that behind. Well, okay, you are technically behind, but that difference is by no means game ending, simply because of how large the map size is. So the larger the map size, obviously, the longer the rush distance, and the longer the rush distance, that benefits players utilizing the defender's advantage card. So Flash, even though his opener is not as economical, the later it plays out, like when it's later on and your opponent might be doing an attack or something, then the defender's advantage neutralizes the small economic lead that Classic ends up obtaining. One thing to note is that when you go for a Nexus first as a Protoss player, although you have a slightly better economy, you are in fact delaying your tech a lot. So one thing that Flash can do to change his play up against a Nexus first build is to play a bit greedier. And by that I mean you don't need to necessarily scan your opponent very early. You don't need to worry about early oracles, early blink, any early 2-base all-in really, even an early gateway pressure. The Cyber Core is done here at 440-ish, and he hasn't even started gateway or warp gate yet because his minerals, or his gas / minerals, his money basically goes into a mothership core and a stalker first. So now warp gate just starts. So it's very, very delayed. So we see Flash here, since it was a Nexus first, one of the things that he can cut out of his play is getting a bunker at the natural ramp. He is also he's also going for a very standard build. It's just a 3 racks build. He got a depot and then he got 2 additional barracks, and then he put his guys back in gas after he started his 3rd barracks. And now Stim's on the way. And on the production tab, we've seen him only make Marines. He's also cutting Marines right now because, as we see here, Classic's Forge has gone down. That was about the 5:30 minute mark. So his one piece of tech is a bit later than if he went for a gateway expand with a mothership core. And we also see here that Flash is cutting Marines in favor of getting a 2nd gas up. So instead of investing extra minerals into his production with the barracks, he's instead reinvesting it into a faster gas and more continual SCV production. You know, just optimizing his play to how his opponent has opened up in this early game. We also see that he's kept the Reaper alive too. He just decided not to sack it. On a map such as Deadwing, it's actually, against the players like Classic, he knows all of the spots that the Reaper can jump into, so if the Reaper does jump into it, there's like a 50% chance. It's a coin flip basically that the Reaper might scout something. And it might not, because Classic could possibly also proxy a building. So it's just better to keep the Reaper alive and gain general bits of scouting information, such as right now. Excuse me, you can poke the Reaper in to check the gas count at the natural. You wouldn't obviously be able to do that if you sacked it for the tech. And we see here Flash he's changed his play up a bit from Home Story Cup. I don't believe he did this in his TvP games versus First, but we see the double Marauder production going up and no Marines being added either. So he's gotten that early tech lab. His factory is, of course, done. What he's delayed instead is his +1. It's just now starting. And he's just like Marine King. We saw him in a couple videos back. We see Flash prioritizing Marauder production. And instead of using his barracks 100% of the time, he's actually going to be focusing more on Marauder production and SCVs instead of getting a higher Marine count. And we see, I believe the turret is going to be built at the natural. He still has not gotten a bunker up at all, mostly because, yeah, the turret's at the natural, but mostly because the Reaper is at the third over there, so he would have seen any probe move out, any general movement of any units trying to go out to do a 2-base attack, so he doesn't need the bunker. And we see Flash is now at a 4 Marauder count before he takes his third base. He's going to take his third base at around the 9-minute mark, but since he hasn't scouted any move out from the Protoss player yet, he knows that the earliest possible aggression isn't going to come for some time, so he can safely build up his army and macro up. Notice how he's still focusing on Marauders. He made the first 2 Marauders, and then he made some other stuff. He made the SCVs, and then he put down the command center, or he queued it up at least, and then he made the 2 Marines. So Marauder production is still in favor over Marines. However, we don't see him constantly using the barracks. We see the barracks now are stopped, and he's going to produce 2 more additional medevacs. He doesn't want the medevac or the starport to be idle, but it's okay for the barracks to be idle in these positions, mainly because of, again, how big the map is. That defender's advantage really kicks in. So this initial force, if it was to do any damage, it wouldn't be able to reinforce to snowball that effect anytime soon because of the size of the map. So instead, we see Flash playing a very macro-oriented position of this game. He's going to do a small double drop, and we also see that since Flash has scouted that Classic is not doing a 2-base all-in that we saw him do, or he did a fake 2-base all-in, but it was still a very aggressive build that we saw him do on Overgrowth. Flash is going to be going up to 6 medevacs this time, and not only is that important because, again, Classic has no room to really put the aggression on, so Flash can get away with squeezing out 2 additional medevacs. It also allows, or on this map, if the Protoss player was to move out, it's a lot easier to surround and flank the Protoss army, so you can get good engagements off without having this, with bio units flanking to the splash parts of the Protoss army. And we also see him making a couple Widow Mines, so he's gonna, not only is he gonna use these medevacs aggressively, he's gonna add Widow Mines into them, and he's gonna be doing a Doom Drop-esque style that we saw that was very, very popular, going up to that 5 racks. Cure introduced it, I believe, going up in the GSL last season, going up to 5 racks, taking a 12-minute third and doing like a 6 medevac drop at about the 12 minutes. Flash, he's not going to have as much supply, but he's still going to be using the positional advantages that come with using this kind of drop type play. And we see Classic has also taken this base over here, and Flash, he's also not pushing forward too much. All he's trying to do is deny the third base from mining. That's essentially as good as if it wasn't up to begin with when the probes aren't mining. And he's doing a really good job at it. Not at denying the third base from mining per se, but more not making any overextensions. He's not going up the ramp and trying to snipe probes. It's just, he's just casually moving his army on the bottom ground, and the Marauders may or may not get a couple shots off. It's probably one of the safest things you can do with your army. There's almost no way that the Protoss player can punish that, except if he has Colossus out, but the Colossus are defending at home from the other drops. So Flash's mid-game is evolving at this point, and his earlier mid-game stage was doing those medevac drops that we saw earlier on. He's still positioning his army around to try to attack in 2 places at once, but we saw he's only making 6 Widow Mines because he doesn't want to overmake Widow Mines. He instead wants to transition out of this. We've seen in the past, I believe Tai and Byung, they stick out in my mind the most, but they would go up to about 200 supply, make a bunch of Widow Mines, and do constant aggression like this. But Flash doesn't want to do that. He just wants to do a lot of aggression. We see very, very nice maneuvering by Flash's army to group up this double-pronged attack into one location, so he's attacking with 100% of his army rather than just 50% or a portion of his army, whereas Classic wasn't. He got caught off guard, so that's why this push was able to do so much damage, and he was only fighting with a part of his army rather than all of it like Flash was. So really good positional play by Flash, having the medevacs over here at the natural, going from the main to the natural, and then going from the third to the main. This map is very easy to outposition your opponent in with drops. This style is very strong on it. But Flash, although he's gotten an advantage from that, he's not trying to use the same techniques over and over to obtain an even larger advantage. Instead, he now has established an advantage, and he is transitioning out into Ghost Viking. We see that 4th base being taken for him on the spot at around the 1550 minute mark, and 3 additional barracks is going down, and he also made the Ghost Academy as well. We see him floating a lot of money right now, but that's just because he's going to pump it all into Ghosts really quickly, and Ghosts are super expensive, so it's like making a bunch of units at a time. Or 3 Ghosts is 600 minerals and 300 gas, so that's really, you kind of have to have some money banked up if you're going to be transitioning into Ghost Viking, because you can only make so many Ghosts at a time. So we see here, although Flash is in a, I would say even though the army supplies are even, he's still in a much better position. His army progression into the Ghost Viking deathball is a lot farther than Classic's Colossi High Templar count, or his like transition into the Colossi High Templar deathball army. And not only does Flash have a superior army, his upgrade advantage is going to be better, I believe. I don't know the upgrades on Classic's army, but I think it's going to be, I'm pretty sure it's going to be superior or even. And Flash's 4th base is already up, whereas Classic's 4th base has just started. So Flash is going to benefit from an additional income for a good minute, a good production, 2 production-ish rounds before Classics is going to kick in. And then we see again Flash still doing a double-pronged attack, and he's also at the 3rd base denying mining time. It's okay at this point that this trade isn't going as cost efficiently. He did kill 9 probes, so this has really put a damper into Classic's mineral count. He doesn't have the power of mules, so he has to remake those probes. Losing a lot of probes like that is actually, it'll mess up your mineral count a lot for the Protoss player, and especially when he doesn't have that 4th base yet either. And when he does have it, he wants to saturate it. He doesn't have enough probes to either. We notice how Flash has 72 SCVs. It's generally a bit high, but since he took the 4th base fast enough, he's going to be on 4 bases for a couple minutes, so it's actually more beneficial to go up to 72 to 75 SCVs to gain an additional couple hundred mineral income per second, as we see here, and to of course support the gas at the 4th base, as we see reflected in the income tab. Flash now, so this is what I would consider the later part of the game, from when he started his 4th base to when he started getting his Ghost Viking count up. We see the convenient unit production tab being switched around from the unit count tab from the unit production tab is what I was going to say. Ugh, that came out horribly. Anyways, 12 Ghosts on the field, 7 Vikings, 10 Medevacs, and a handy Bioforce on the field. And he is maxed out at 2-2, and his 3-3 is on the way. So he now has a late game economy, being on 4 bases. He also has a late game army. He has 12 Ghosts in his army and 7 Vikings. That is a pretty good count. And his constant medevac aggression, he's traded out a lot of probes from Classic. He's also traded relatively cost efficiently as well, uh, trading away his bio army in favor of Classic's army. So we see Classic's Colossus count is only at 1, he has 2 Immortals and only 2 Archons, and he has 12 freaking High Templar. This would be a lot scarier if he had multiple Colossi to complement the High Templar, but as a result, he only has 1, so Flash doesn't need to get a very high Viking count. So right now, Flash has the trump card. He top-decked this Ghost Viking card in Hearthstone terms. But really, he does have a stronger army. He's maxed out. He has a 4th base. He's starting his 5th base on location just because he can. He has control of the map. He has full momentum of the game as well. Also starting multiple orbitals and 2 additional barracks as well. I also want to point out that although Flash has been maxed out for about 10 seconds now, his money has not gone over 1,000, mainly because he's adding infrastructure necessary to increase his income and production capabilities to get back to that 200 supply count. And we see that being added in the 2 additional barracks. I would also mind seeing him add a 3rd starport as well. But the 2 barracks, only 2 are needed just to add 2 more tech labs, so you can produce a whopping 7 ghosts at a time. That's like 1,400 minerals if you do produce 7 ghosts, or even like 700 minerals just for Marauders. That's a ridiculous part of your income. And then also adding a couple of command centers, because you do need additional orbitals for those additional scans and mules, when not so much as for trading out your army, but for having available scans for DT shenanigans to keep a track of what the Protoss player is doing. You actually don't want to sack your SCVs at this point because you're taking a 5th base really fast. You need the constant mineral income that 70-ish SCVs will provide you at this stage of the game. And then you want to use your scans for, just scouting the army. We see here Flash just completely destroying Classic's army because he does have that superior army composition. All he had to do was make sure he didn't get completely destroyed by a couple well-placed storms by having his army spread out and landing some key EMPs throughout the fight. And now we see Flash with an over 100 supply lead. His 3-3 is about to finish. He's producing like almost 30-ish supply. 5 Marauders, 6 Marines, 10, 16, actually 20-ish. He's producing 20 supply every production round. So his supply is staying way up there. And as a result, he's able to end the game out in a very convincing fashion. He was taking that 5th base. He was getting his very, very late game infrastructure up. And although the game ended when he was at the late stage, he was also set throughout each stage in the game, from taking that earlier 3rd base and cutting units out, not making as many army units as one might if the Protoss player opened up differently. That was his early game, and then transitioning out of that into a mid-game full of multi-pronged drops with Bio Widowmine forces, and then transitioning again into a late-stage game, getting his 4th and 5th base up, and getting that Ghost Viking army and having an economy to replenish that Ghost Viking army. So that even if Classic had taken a little less damage and he was able to get his 4th base up a little bit faster, Flash would have had he would have been in a very good position to go ahead and try to snowball that earlier game advantage that he had, that the drops ended up doing even further throughout the game, such as denying Classic's 5th base and slowly starving Classic out while taking bases of his own and being able to replenish his army and kind of just winning the war of attrition here. Yeah, a very nice, I would say a very clean-cut TvP macro game by him. Nothing silly going on, nothing fancy, just having a much more solid macro game than Classic and having a better game plan that is very, very useful to copy for us Terran players. I think I covered everything. Oh, and no, yeah, I did pretty much cover everything. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. EJK, peace out.